I still remember the exact way she looked at me when she said it. The rain was hitting the windows. The room was dark except for the glow of the city lights bleeding through the glass, and she was sitting on the edge of my couch, mascara smudged, hair still wet from running through the storm, asking me a question I didn't know how to answer. Even in bed? 3 words that changed everything. I met her in October. I was 28, working 60-hour weeks at a consulting firm I hated, living in an apartment that felt more like a storage unit than a home. I wasn't unhappy exactly. I was just empty, going through motions, existing. She walked into my life on a Tuesday afternoon. I was at a coffee shop near my office, trying to finish a report that was due in 2 hours. The place was packed, every table taken. I had my laptop, my phone, my 3rd espresso of the day, and this desperate need for silence. Then she appeared next to my table. "Is this seat taken?" I looked up. Dark hair pulled back in a loose bun, gray sweater that looked 2 sizes too big, no makeup, tired eyes that somehow still held this quiet intensity. "It's all yours," I said. She sat down without thanking me. Didn't smile, just opened her book and started reading like I wasn't even there. I liked that. Most people feel the need to fill silence with small talk. She didn't. She just existed in her own world, turning pages slowly, occasionally sipping from a cup of black coffee that had gone cold. I tried to focus on my report. I couldn't. There was something about her presence, the way she held herself, the way she seemed completely comfortable being alone in a crowded room. After 20 minutes, she closed her book. "You've been staring at the same paragraph for 10 minutes, she said, not looking at me. "I'm working." "No, you're not. You're pretending to work while actually just sitting here feeling stressed about not working." I blinked. That's oddly specific. She finally looked at me. "I'm good at reading people." "What's your diagnosis then?" "You hate your job. You're good at it, which makes it worse because you know you could leave, but you don't. You're stuck in a routine that's slowly suffocating you, and you tell yourself it's fine because at least it's stable." The accuracy of that felt like a punch. "That's a lot to get from watching someone stare at a laptop," I managed. "It's in your shoulders, the way you sit, the way you keep checking your phone like you're waiting for an excuse to stop working." She stood up, slinging her bag over her shoulder. "For what it's worth, whatever you're working on probably doesn't matter as much as you think it does." Then she left. I sat there for another 10 minutes, her words echoing in my head, before I closed my laptop and walked out without finishing the report. I saw her again 3 days later. Same coffee shop, different table, same gray sweater. This time I didn't wait for her to speak first. "I was right," I said, standing next to her table. "The report didn't matter." She looked up, and for the first time I saw something that might have been a smile. "Did you get fired?" "No, turns out missing one deadline doesn't end the world." "Revolutionary concept." "Can I sit?" She gestured to the empty chair. Her name was Elise. She was 26. She worked as a freelance photographer, mostly doing editorial work for magazines I'd never heard of. She lived alone in a studio apartment in a neighborhood I'd only ever driven through. She didn't believe in social media. She read actual books. She drank her coffee black because she said adding anything to it was avoiding the experience. We talked for 2 hours. She asked me questions that made me uncomfortable, about what I actually wanted from life, about when I'd stopped being excited about things, about the last time I'd done something just because it made me feel alive. I didn't have good answers, but she listened like my terrible answers mattered anyway. When I finally had to leave for a meeting I couldn't skip, she wrote her number on a napkin. "In case you ever want to have an actual conversation instead of just thinking about having one," she said. We started meeting regularly after that. Always at that coffee shop. Always in the late afternoon when the rush had died down and the light came through the windows in this soft, golden way that made everything feel less real. She told me about her life in pieces. About growing up in a small town she'd left at 18 and never looked back. About her parents who didn't understand why she'd chosen a career with no security. About the relationship that ended badly 2 years ago and left her with trust issues she was still working through. I told her about my life too. about the law degree I'd started and never finished, about the novel I'd been working on for 5 years that was really just 30 pages of notes and excuses, about feeling like I was watching my own life happen to someone else. She didn't try to fix me, didn't offer advice, didn't tell me everything would be okay. She just listened. And slowly, without realizing it was happening, I started looking forward to those afternoons more than anything else in my week. The shift happened in November. We'd moved beyond the coffee shop, started meeting for dinners, long walks through the city at night when the streets were quiet and the air was cold enough to see our breath. We were walking by the river. It was late, maybe midnight. The city was mostly asleep except for the distant sound of traffic and the occasional person passing by. "Why haven't you asked me out?" she said suddenly. I stopped walking. "What?" "On a date, an actual date, not just these ambiguous hangouts where we both pretend we're just friends." You didn't think I'd be interested?" "I didn't want to ruin this." "Ruin what?"
Whatever this is. This thing we have. I like talking to you. I like being around you. I didn't want to mess that up by making it complicated. You think asking me out would make it complicated? Wouldn't it? She stepped closer. Close enough that I could see the way the streetlight caught in her eyes. "It's already complicated," she said quietly. "You just haven't admitted it yet." My heart was hammering. "Elise, I'm not asking you to have all the answers. I'm just asking you to be honest about what you want." "What if I don't know what I want?" "Then figure it out." She kissed me. It wasn't gentle, wasn't tentative. It was the kind of kiss that felt like a question and an answer at the same time. When she pulled back, she was looking at me with this expression I couldn't read. "Think about it," she said. Then she walked away, leaving me standing there by the river with my heart still racing and my mind spinning. I thought about it for 3 days. Thought about all the reasons it was a bad idea. The timing, the complications, the fact that I was barely holding my own life together. But I also thought about the way she made me feel like I was actually present in my own life for the first time in years. On the 4th day, I called her. "I want this," I said when she answered. "Whatever this is, I want it." She was quiet for a moment. "Okay," she said finally. "Then let's try." The next month was the best month of my life. We fell into this rhythm that felt effortless. Dinners at tiny restaurants she'd discovered in neighborhoods I'd never explored. Late nights in her apartment, talking until 3 in the morning about everything and nothing. Mornings where I'd wake up next to her and feel this unfamiliar sense of peace. She was different than anyone I'd ever been with. She didn't need me to be perfect, didn't expect me to have my life figured out. She just wanted me to be real with her. And I was. I told her things I'd never told anyone, about feeling like I'd wasted my 20s, about being terrified that I'd wake up at 40 and realize I'd spent my entire life doing things I didn't care about not knowing how to want things without simultaneously being afraid of wanting them. She listened to all of it. And then she'd tell me about her own fears, about wondering if she'd made a mistake choosing a career that barely paid the bills, about feeling like she was always 1 month away from financial disaster, about the loneliness that came with living a life that didn't fit into anyone's expectations. We were both kind of a mess, but we were a mess together. It happened on a Tuesday night in December. She called me at 11. Her voice was wrong, shaky in a way I'd never heard before. "Can you come over?" "What's wrong?" "Just, can you come over? Please." I was there in 15 minutes. She opened the door before I could knock. Her eyes were red. Her hands were trembling. "My mom called." I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. "She's sick. Really sick. They found something in her lungs and she needs surgery, and the doctors are saying things like aggressive and limited time, and I don't—" Her voice broke. I pulled her into my arms, her whole body shaking with sobs she'd probably been holding in for hours. We stayed like that for a long time. Eventually, she pulled back, wiping at her eyes with the sleeve of her sweater. "I have to go home. Back to that town I swore I'd never return to. I have to be there for her. Of course you do. The thing is, she looked at me, and there was something desperate in her expression. I don't know if I can do this alone. Going back there, facing my family, watching my mom go through this? You won't be alone. You don't understand. My family, they never supported any of my choices. They think I wasted my life. And now I'm coming back as the daughter who abandoned them, who only shows up when someone's dying. That's not true. It's how they'll see it. Then prove them wrong. She laughed, but it was hollow. How? By being there. By showing up. By doing what needs to be done even though it's hard. I don't know if I'm strong enough. I took her face in my hands, making her look at me. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met, Elise. You left everything you knew to build the life you wanted. You chose honesty over comfort. You've been fighting for yourself since you were 18 years old. You can do this. Will you come with me? The question caught me off guard. Come with you? I know it's a lot to ask. We've only been together for a month, and it's 6 hours drive to the middle of nowhere to meet my family who will probably hate you on principle. But She stopped, swallowing hard. I need you there. I can't do this alone. I thought about my job, the projects I was in the middle of, the responsibilities I'd be abandoning. Then I thought about her standing in this apartment by herself, packing a bag to face the hardest thing she'd probably ever have to face. When do we leave? I said. Her eyes filled with tears again. You mean it? I mean it. I don't know how long I'll need to be there. It could be weeks, maybe months. Your job. My job will figure it out, or it won't. Either way, I'm coming with you. She kissed me then. Different from that first kiss by the river. This one tasted like salt and desperation and gratitude. When she pulled back, she was looking at me with this expression that made my chest ache. I love you, she whispered. It was the first time either of us had said it. I love you too. We stood there in the middle of her tiny apartment, holding each other while the world outside us continued on. We left the next morning.
6 hours in my car, driving through landscapes that gradually shifted from city to suburbs to empty highway to small towns that looked like time had forgotten them. She was quiet most of the drive, staring out the window, lost in thoughts she didn't share. I let her have the silence. Her hometown was exactly what I'd pictured. Population 3,000, one main street with a diner, a hardware store, a church. Houses spread out across farmland that stretched to the horizon. Her family's house was on the edge of town, a 2-story farmhouse that had probably been beautiful once, but now just looked tired. Her father answered the door. Tall, weathered, the kind of man whose face doesn't show emotion easily. "Elise," he said. "Dad." They stood there for a moment, neither moving to hug. "This is," she gestured to me, "this is someone I brought with me." Her father looked at me with the kind of assessment that felt like judgment. "He got a name?" He's with me," Elise interrupted. "That's all you need to know right now." Her father's jaw tightened, but he stepped aside to let us in. The next 2 weeks were brutal. Her mother was in the hospital most of the time, going through tests, meeting with doctors, preparing for a surgery that had a 50-50 chance of working. Elise spent every day at the hospital. I went with her, sitting in waiting rooms, bringing coffee, being there when she needed someone and giving her space when she needed to be alone. Her family didn't know what to make of me. Her father barely spoke except to ask practical questions. Her older brother made it clear I thought I was just another mistake Elise was making. Her aunt kept asking intrusive questions about our intentions that Elise would shut down with increasing irritation. But Elise needed me there. I could feel it in the way she'd reach for my hand when the doctors gave updates, the way she'd lean against me in the car on the drive back to her parents' house each night, the way she'd fall asleep in my arms, exhausted from holding it together all day. One night, after a particularly difficult day where the doctors had delivered some bad news about her mother's prognosis, we were back at the house. Her family had gone to bed. We were in her childhood bedroom, a space that still had posters on the walls and books from high school on the shelves. She was sitting on the bed, staring at nothing. "I don't think she's going to make it," she said quietly. I sat down next to her. "The doctors—" I know what the doctor said, but I can see it in her eyes. She's already saying goodbye. I didn't know what to say, didn't know how to make this better. I keep thinking about all the time I wasted, all the years I stayed away because I was angry at them for not understanding me. And now she's dying, and I can't get those years back. You're here now. That matters. Does it? Or am I just here to ease my own guilt? You're here because you love her, even if it's complicated, even if it hurts. She looked at me then, really looked at me. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "What do you mean?" "You barely know me. We've been together for a month. Most people would have run the moment I asked you to come to the middle of nowhere to deal with my dying mother and my hostile family, but you just stayed. Why?" I thought about how to answer that. "Because you asked," finally. "And because when I'm with you, I feel like I'm actually living instead of just existing. And because—" I paused, trying to find the right words. "Because love isn't just the easy parts. It's showing up when things are hard. It's being there even when you don't have the answers." Her eyes were shining with tears. "I'll do anything for you," I said, and I meant it with everything in me. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said it. "Even in bed?" The question hung in the air between us, not flirtatious, not playful, something else entirely. "What?" I managed. She stood up, pacing to the window. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Elise, it's just—" She turned back to face me. "Everyone in my life has always had conditions. My parents loved me as long as I followed their rules. My ex loved me as long as I made him feel needed. People say they'll do anything, but they mean anything that's comfortable, anything that doesn't cost them too much. That's not what I meant. You know, that's what scares me." She wrapped her arms around herself. "Because if you really mean it, if you really are willing to do anything, then I don't know how to protect myself from this." I stood up, crossing the room to her. "From what?" "From loving you too much, from needing you too much, from becoming someone who can't function without you there." "That's not what this is." "How do you know?" "Because I'm not asking you to need me. I'm asking you to let me be here. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yes. Needing someone is about filling a void. Choosing someone is about wanting them even when you're whole on your own." She looked at me with this mix of fear and hope that made my heart ache. "I've never had that before," she whispered. "Neither have I." The rain had started outside. We could hear it hitting the roof, steady and rhythmic. "When I asked even in bed," she said quietly, "I wasn't being sexual. I was asking, will you still love me when I'm at my worst? When I'm angry and broken and impossible? When I'm not the version of myself that's easy to care about?" I took her hands in mine. "Especially then." She kissed me, and for the first time since we'd arrived, I felt her relax against me, like she'd been holding her breath for 2 weeks and was finally letting it out. Her mother died 3 weeks later. The surgery hadn't worked. The cancer was too aggressive. She passed quietly in the hospital with her family around her. I held Elise while she cried, sat with her through the funeral, stood next to her while her father delivered a eulogy that was beautiful and heartbreaking. Her family's opinion of me shifted after that. Not dramatically, but in small ways. Her father started including me in conversations. Her brother stopped looking at me like I was an intruder. Her aunt stopped asking intrusive questions and started asking if I needed anything. Because I stayed. I showed up every day. I was there through the worst of it. I hadn't left when it got hard. And they saw what Elise saw. that I meant what I'd said. We drove back to the city a week after the funeral. Elise needed to handle some things with her family. Arrangements, paperwork, all the administrative horror that comes after someone dies. But she also needed to leave, to process, to breathe. In the car, somewhere on the highway between her past and her future, she turned to me. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For showing me what it looks like when someone means what they say." "You would have done the same for me." "Maybe, but you did it first, and that matters." We drove in comfortable silence for a while. Then she said, "Move in with me." I looked at her. "What?" "Move in with me. Your apartment is terrible anyway, and I don't want to spend another night wondering if you're going to be there in the morning." "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." I reached over and took her hand. "Okay." "Okay?" "Yes, I'll move in with you." She smiled, and it was the first real smile I'd seen from her in weeks. That was 8 months ago. We're living together now in her tiny studio that's too small for 2 people, but somehow works anyway. I quit my job, started freelancing. It pays less, but I don't spend every day feeling like I'm suffocating. Elise is working through her grief. Some days are better than others. Some days she wakes up and the weight of it is too much and she can barely get out of bed. On those days, I make her coffee and sit with her, and don't try to fix anything. Other days, she's herself again, taking photos, making plans, laughing at terrible jokes I make while we're cooking dinner. We're figuring it out together. And I still think about that night sometimes, about the rain hitting the windows, about her standing in her childhood bedroom asking me that question. Even in bed? I understand now what she was really asking. She was asking if I would love her when she was vulnerable, when she was scared, when she couldn't be strong. And the answer was yes. The answer is still yes. Because love isn't about grand gestures or perfect moments. It's about showing up. It's about staying. It's about meaning what you say, even when it's hard. She taught me that, and I'm grateful for it every single day. If you liked this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thanks.